Either you decide your career with a bigger company brand or just jump at your startup. Hustle, fight.
I disagree with this. I don't think we live our lives like that. The other analogy is that you're thrown off a cliff with a bunch of parts and you have to build an airplane before you land, before you fall.
Or you die.
Alpha personalities do not necessarily make good VCs because you have to keep your ego in check. You are not the doer. You are not the Arjun in the Gita story. You are at most the charioteer, at most.
Are you a doer or a thinker?
This isn't a trade-off. You need to be both a thinker and a doer.
For the first 5 years of your career, you should explore and experiment as much as you can.
I think your 20s are a time to explore.
Say whatever you plan will not happen. Discount 30-40% any which ways and be at it.
It is my belief that you learn the science, the process of doing things well in larger companies better than you learn in startups.
Hey everyone, good morning, hola, namaskar. Thank you so much and so grateful for all your love, all your feedback, comments, even trolling. I love trolling because that's where we improve. And on that note, today's guest, in fact, I've only met him a couple of times, but few things which I believe, I can vouch for. How he manages fitness. It won't be untrue to say that one of the fittest guy around, not in this industry or in India, but how he manages times and his fitness, and probably he seems that he's very disciplined. And so Ritesh, first of all, welcome on the Living Pod by
Thank you so
UST
much
Living.
for having me.
And thank you so much for flying down from Bangalore. Why you decided to do this? But before that, so for me, Ritesh is one of the warmest and genuine guy. I met him twice before this. My intent to bring him and invite him to learn from the horse mouth, how someone can chalk their career into venture capitalist, how someone can, be an operator, but still, move to a capital raising or a investment space. So from an operator to a VC, Ritesh, would love to know, my audience would love to know more about you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Saurabh. Really glad to be here talking to you. I'll first answer the question that you asked as to why I'm here. So my belief is, Saurabh, that people choose who they want to associate with, not based on utility, usefulness, personal motives.
Interest, yeah.
They choose to associate with people that they emotionally connect with. And the twice that I've met with you, I have found a lot in common between us. I have found our conversation to be sparkling, and that's why I'm here mainly to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, you're already putting so much of pressure on me. Great. Really want to understand your journey, how Ritesh is known by his family, by his friends, and in the industry.
Wow, that's quite a few questions that will need a little bit of reflection on my side as well. Let me start off with my professional journey. So I graduated from college 26 years ago now, and I graduated as an electrical engineer and went to work as an electrical engineer. I started off with an electronic design automation company called Synopsis, and I started with them in Bangalore as an engineer. Now, Synopsis had a very interesting HR policy that after you complete a year in a job, you could move to any role anywhere in the world. If you got that job, you can move. So, totally free market for
Wow.
employment internally. I was young, I wanted to see the world. So I applied for jobs in the most exotic locations I could imagine.
And when was this? In which year?
This was in the year 2000. So I got a job in the Singapore office doing technical consulting. I moved there. A year in Singapore, I got another job within the same company in Europe, doing pre-sales for the entire European region. I grabbed at that opportunity and moved to. I was based in London, and My role involved travel to a different city in Europe pretty much every week. Now you have to imagine that situation. I'm 23 years old.
Wow.
I'm out there to see the world, and everywhere that the more senior salespeople didn't want to go, I would put up my hand. You have to travel to Munich on a Friday. The senior salesperson doesn't want to go because he would come back at 1 in the night. He would miss time with his family. I'm 23. I want to go because that way I can spend my weekend in Munich.
Wow.
So it was, I spent a couple of years there in that role. And some of the best time of my life because I was traveling all over Europe on business, but then I would extend my trips like this. I learned how to do sales. I learned how to talk to clients in various different geographies, various different languages. But I also realized that I was getting my career was getting
Shaped.
too narrow,
Oh.
too early on. So I was, I think, not even 25 yet, and I was selling a very specific electronic design automation product to chip design companies in Europe. It was too early to specialize so much in my career. And
Very
I
interesting.
decided at that point that I needed to become a little bit more of a generalist
Very interesting.
than become such a specialist so early in my career.
Very, very interesting. Everyone have their preconceived notions. Everyone they have their way of seeing things. So I believe that the earlier you start, whatever you start, and then go deep into it and become so domain specific and domain knowledgeable that you are best at it, and then you will be valued. You will be indispensable in your not in your company, but also in the industry and probably in the globe. So this is the way I've been seeing it. Probably from 30 to I'm 40. So you are saying from 20 to, let's say, for the first 5 years of your career, you should explore and experiment as much as you can.
So, I mean, at least my philosophy is not only related to career but to life in general. That there is a time to explore and there is a time to concentrate.
Oh.
I think your 20s are a time to explore. I call it a little dramatically, I call it the Odyssey. That is the time for the journey. That is the time when I I believe you should try out as many things as you can to figure out what you really like, because we are truly only becoming adults at that in that phase of life, and unless we have explored enough, unless we have figured out what we really want, we end up making suboptimal choices. And at that stage of my career, I felt I was getting bogged down a little bit by choosing too early or specializing too early.
Wow.
And so I decided to go for an MBA.
After 20, when you were 25, and
When I was 25
that's
years
where you
old.
went to INSEAD.
That's when I went to INSEAD.
Okay.
And I think that was a very good decision in hindsight, because I was not really looking for academic knowledge about business. I was starting to learn. I think I've learned business more in my actual jobs than I have at business school. But what I learned at business school was a little more about how to be a generalist, how to take not just a problem in my business, but a business problem in general, analyze it, come up with solutions, um, reach out to people to help solve those problems, learn how to reach out to people beyond your immediate network. At least to me, the MBA helped a lot more in all of those softer aspects than necessarily learning accounting and finance and
Technicalities.
marketing and so on.
No, this part I relate to you because I didn't design. I wasn't smart as like you, or probably was thinking too much. But it happened this way. For in my undergrad, after I did my economics honor from Delhi University, I worked for India Bulls and then Infosys, and then I'm like, I realized there are some gaps. I need to be better. Like I need to get grooming. I need to fix few things, and then I like now it's a time. Probably we should do an MBA, and with the same thought, I had a question that why you need to go to a college for education in a world wherein you have AI and YouTube. Even if you are deciding, then why you are not deciding the best? And if you're not able to get the best, you should be aware of your limitations and then take a optimal choice. This is the way I've been thinking and telling our part. And do we really need to do MBA? That's also a question. If you can do a good undergrad course or an internship or a stint in any company for 2 3 years, probably you don't need. That's very specific. But back to your story. So then you decided INSEAD, and why INSEAD?
To be honest, my motivations then and what I believe now are slightly different. Um, I chose INSEAD for, frankly, what I now consider relatively immature reasons. Um,
Location.
I'll explain. No, yeah. Since I was a kid, I have been fascinated by France. Um, I lived a year in France already when I was in college. I went on an exchange program to a French university.
And where did you do your undergrad?
I went to IIT Delhi.
Ah.
And 1 out of the 4 years there,
Right.
I spent in France at a university called INSEAD in Lyon.
Hmm.
And I fell further in love with France.
Hmm.
So I wanted to spend more time in France. That was one reason. Um, Another reason was that my girlfriend then, and who's now my wife, she was in Belgium. I wanted to be close to her. A third reason was that I wanted a 1 year MBA program as opposed to a 2 year one, because I mistakenly believed that opportunity cost at the age of 25 matters a lot. In hindsight, I think the first two reasons were really good reasons. If you love a place
Right.
or a culture, that's a very good reason to make that decision. If you love a person, that's even a better reason to make a decision. Things like opportunity cost, I think, even out over time. And I don't think that was a very good reason to select a university. But at that time, I didn't know better.
But if I ask you 1 year MBA versus 2 year MBA,
I think it depends on your particular situation in life at the moment. A lot of people do an MBA to switch careers. I'm in technology, I want to get into investment banking. Or I'm in marketing, I want to get into consulting. Or
Very smart.
I'm in engineering, I want to get into finance. Now, in general, if you are looking to switch careers, I think you need to give yourself a longer time to do that as opposed to shorter. What happens in a 1 year MBA is that pretty much from the day you start, you have to start thinking about what next. You have to, literally, the day you start your business school, you have to think about
Placements.
at least internships, and the moment you finish your internships, you have to think about your job and so on. And it doesn't give you enough time to reflect and choose what you want to do. However, if you already know roughly what you want to do, or you at least know the industry you want to be in, and you are looking for either the brand, which many people look for when doing their MBAs, or in my case, I was looking to move from being a specialist to a generalist within the technology industry, then I think it's a good idea to choose a 1 year MBA. I don't think studying for, or the academics of a 1 year MBA and a 2 year MBA are massively different. It is just that a 2 year MBA gives you enough time to explore, whereas a 1 year MBA requires you to know what you want to do pretty much from the outset.
You also talked about, because lots of our students ask that is it 1 year or 2 years, and most of the career counselors, so we don't do admission, and we always say that we are not qualified certified counselors. So our job is to tell if you have decided which city, which country you're going, what are the accommodation options, and how can we enhance and enable your student journey after and till the time you are back. How one decide on a which city, which country, or which course they decide. If you would like to, with your 26 experience, someone who I can call is a international student alumni, and most of the audience around that is around that. What are your suggestions?
I'll try to be as honest as
Yeah,
possible in
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Particularly for an MBA education, I think brand matters a lot. The brand of the university matters a lot. Because without that brand, I think the
Agree.
cost benefit doesn't really work out. Even when I studied for my MBA, I spent about 50,000 euros at that time in 2003. I would not have wanted to spend that kind of money unless the brand was valuable enough for me to earn a return on that investment.
Agree.
However, I think if you're only choosing based on brand, you can end up making suboptimal choices. So my advice, and what I would never dare to tell my kids what to do, but at least
Some playbook.
at least I would advise them to shortlist based on brand. So select the best 10 schools that you think you have a shot at in terms of brand. But then, within that shortlist, choose your preferences based on what you want to do after your MBA. Whether whether the school helps you achieve that objective either immediately after or 5 years after graduation. Whether the school has either the academic rigor that you're looking for, or the alumni network that you're looking for, or the culture that you're looking for. And then I'm actually a big believer in also thinking about the vibe of the school before you make that decision. There is no point selecting on all these rigorous criteria and then figuring out that you don't actually enjoy the 1 year or 2 years that you spend there. I have some friends from business school that hated the school from day one. They did not get as much out of the school as I did, or as many of our other colleagues did. And it has nothing to do with career outcomes. I think 1 or 2 years of our lives are precious enough in their own right for us to take into account how we will feel during those 1 or 2 years that we are studying. So it's I would say it's a cascading option tree where you start with, you shortlist based on brand, then look at the more utilitarian aspects, what will help me achieve my objectives. But eventually the final decision you take should also include how you emotionally feel about that choice.
Very deep, very deep. And I'll go so deep on this. But how one should get the vibe of the institute? Should they go for summer schools, exchange programs, and then decide a full stay natter?
Actually, I think we are really poor at determining our emotional reaction in a short visit or even in a summer school. To me, the best way to figure out whether you like something or not is to spend time with alumni of that school.
Wow.
I'm not sure whether I can trust my own judgment on this, but I believe that I can gauge how I will feel in a school if I've spoken to enough alumni. Because the personalities of different schools are different, and I can make out with a relatively high degree of accuracy if I did not know which school a person went to, and I spent 2 hours with them. I think I can make out which school they went to.
Are you a doer or a thinker?
I believe this isn't a trade-off. You need to be both a thinker and a doer. And I don't think you can optimize on just one axis.
Okay, I'd say I'm more a doer. Now I'm becoming more of a thinker. Because I've done few mistakes and do it, and I went for the flow and it worked for us. And hence we able to, if someone asks me that, do you want to do few things again? I'm like, probably not. Even someone come and say that you want to start investing again, I'm like, yes, I want to, because the problem is big, it's a macros and there's a need, but probably I will not do few things which I did it because probably that was the only choice at that point in time. Because when you are at it, everyone try to give their best.
Yeah.
It's only after 5 years you say, oh, probably that was the wrong decision, right? But again, back to you. So how you see yourself, how your friends see yourself, and how your friends in industry see yourself?
So I'm a VC, so you should get your answer.
Good.
But also, I think I genuinely believe that thinking without doing is useless. So I think I can tell you what I want to be. It's very hard for us to reflect on what we are. Uh, what I idolize is what we call the philosopher king, which is the the king who thinks before acting, the king who understands the results of his actions, but who does eventually act. But because without action, uh, I don't think you can leave a mark on the world.
Right, totally. And what do you think other perceive of you, as per you?
Wow, if you ask my children, they will believe that
You're the coolest dad. It seems so. You come across like you're very into adventure, cool.
I have no desire to be a cool dad. Um, I think I think the desire to be a cool dad comes from not recognizing that you are an authority figure in your children's lives. And I think it is possible to be an authority figure and yet have the kindness and um, empathy with your children. So that's my desire to be an authority figure, but with kindness and empathy, as opposed to be a friend to my children.
Very nice.
It's a totally different direction.
No, so then you did 2003 to 2005. You did INSEAD.
Yes.
Then how your life
No,
shaped.
not 2003 to 5. I did it in 2003.
Three. Okay.
Then I went to work again in the technology industry, but this time changed tracks to be a product manager for consumer internet and mobile companies. I worked at two places. I worked at Adobe Systems, where I was running a line of business in the digital media space for them, about a $40 million P&L. Truly enjoyed that role. Learned the not just the art, but I would say the science of product management there. And till date, it is my belief that you learn the science, the process of doing things well in larger companies better than you learn in startups. Because in a startup, you are flying by the seat of your pants. You are inventing processes. In large companies, you're learning the right way, the more rigorous way to do things. And I think early in your career,
Very interesting.
again, it's been my personal experience that I learned a lot from my work in large companies. Sometimes it can be boring, sometimes you can get bogged down in processes, but I think you learn the rigor of building your product or building your function much better in a large company than you do in a startup. I did eventually go and work at a startup. This was one of the early startups in India, a company called July Systems. And it was a transformative experience. The company did not do very well. They got sold to Cisco eventually, so there was an exit, but it wasn't a very large exit. But I learned so much, and I was hooked to startups for life after that experience.
And this was again in 2008.
No, this was 2006-7. I was with them, and it was very early days of startups in India. I think the friends that I made in that company are lifelong friends, because what a startup is really a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
You're throwing chana and vegetables and meat in a pressure cooker and hoping to get biryani at the end, right? And that's what startups do. So the bonds that you form in that high pressure environment, when, like I said, you're flying by the seat of your pants, you are the other way I think of startups, the other analogy is that you're thrown off a cliff with a bunch of parts and you have to build an airplane before you land, before you fall.
Or you die.
Right? Or you die. And that experience, I think, so we could not build the plane that we sought out to build. But the bonds that I formed with the people, the learnings that I had, I have never before or after had that pace of learning in my entire career. I'll give you an example. I was leading a mobile games P&L for that company.
July
Systems. I was running their mobile games business. But I learned less about mobile games, more about how to sell, how to work with engineers, how to work with company bureaucracy, how to work with large clients, how different is it to sell in India versus sell globally. Um, I'll give you an example. We would go and sell to large mobile operators in India and also in other geographies. In India, the management of large mobile carriers in those days will keep you waiting for 3 hours before they see you. They will ensure that you miss your flight, return flight back, because that's a negotiation tactic. It's a power dynamic. My first instinct was feeling insulted. My first instinct was
So true.
that it is disrespectful to me as a professional and to my company that you're keeping me waiting for 3-4 hours and making me miss my flight. But over time, I learned that it is how business is done in India. That it is purely a negotiation tactic. It is not personal disrespect. It is the business culture on how power is projected. I believe power is projected in every economy and every culture.
Yeah.
And you got to learn the rules of the game by doing it. So I would never have learned how to sell in India if I had rejected the game because the rules were not to my liking. But because I was in a startup and it needed to be done, there was nobody else to do
How
it.
did you realize this? Now you realize, or you were realizing that point in time?
No, I think I realized it then. It was a very hard lesson to
Who make
to
you
learn.
realize? Because if you have a value system, like I relate to here, if like I will not do this to others, why others are doing to me? This is wrong. Be it.
I think that is where startups humble you, Saurabh. That
Yeah.
you realize that you stop thinking about whether it is right or wrong. You start thinking in terms of, do I want to play this game or do I not want to play this game? You don't think about whether the game itself is
Fair.
right or wrong.
Right.
And in a startup, I guess you're almost obligated to play the game because your power in the relationship is very low. And the only way to learn how to play this game is by playing it. You can't learn the game by being outside of it. But I learned to respect the game by actually playing it and by almost being forced to play it. I can say with certainty that if I were faced with that same game while I was working with Adobe or Synopsis, these were large American companies,
Got it.
I would probably
Yeah.
have learnt a lot less because I would have refused to play the game. Because the startup humbles you into playing the game, that is when you learn the game. That was my experience at July Systems. I would not miss it for anything in the world. I also have to tell you why I moved on to venture capital after that. So in those days,
But that was very early. There were nothing like, no one heard about venture capitalists in India at least.
when I was at July Systems, we were a VC funded company. We had a couple of Indian VCs and 2 or 3 foreign VCs. We had raised a bunch of money, some $28 million cumulatively. That was a large amount of money in those days.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated with the VCs that we had on our board and our cap table. And you have to, I'll take you back in time. Those were the days when VCs used to wear suits. Right? So every month we had a board meeting. And being the only one of the very few MBAs in the team, the task of making the board deck would often fall on me. The founder would rely on me. You're the MBA, you're stuck with making the deck. And we would review the board deck obsessively for a full week every month before we present it to the VCs. And then the founder would ask me questions to answer questions that the VCs might ask. And once in a while, we would get to interact with the VCs. I was reporting to the founder, and once in a while, I would get exposed to the VCs. And I would think, these guys are smart. They are talking about strategic stuff. They are asking these deep questions. Like I said, they're dressing up in suits and coming to our meetings. And some of the associates were around my age. I was 28 and 29 when I worked there. And I thought, hey, I could do this job. So when I was looking for the next thing to do, I was so enamored by the VC world. Frankly, knowing nothing about it except for those short interactions that I had when they were part of our board, I thought I could do this job. So I reached out to every VC that had an office in India at that time.
And you always based in Bangalore?
I lived at different places in the world, but I would always come back to Bangalore after a few
You
years.
were born and brought in Bangalore?
No, I was raised in Rajasthan predominantly.
Oh.
But my professional life, adult life has been, the magnetic pull of Bangalore has pulled me back every time I've moved out of Bangalore.
Right.
But coming back to VC, so I wrote to the 3 or 4 VC firms that operated in India at that time. Through a business school connect, I got an interview with a firm called IDG Ventures. They are now called Chirate Ventures. And, really liked the firm. I liked the people that were running the firm. They were a new firm, quite entrepreneurial. And I decided to take the plunge and join them at that time as a senior associate. When I joined, my boss, Sudhir Sethi, he asked me, how long can you give me? And in all honesty, I told him that I'll give it 2 years. And after 2 years, I'll decide whether I want to do this for longer or not. And within 6 months of that, I had made up my mind. I loved it so much that I could not think of anything else to do with my career. And I went to him and said, I'm in for the rest of my career.
Wow.
And I was so fortunate that the odyssey that I spoke of, the period of exploration that you go through in your 20s, that came to an end for me career-wise around the age of 30. And I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my career, and that's what I've done since the age of 30.
Seems that you knew what are you doing and you're pretty sorted, you're thinking, and whatever you've been thinking, it's been happening. Is it luck? Is it risk? Is it good karmas? What it is? Because if I see your 20s to 30, you're like, this guy knows what he's been doing. IIT, INSEAD, London, Singapore, back to Bangalore. Even now, everyone wants to be part of an investment, VC world, and you've been cracking it. You've been trying to be very humble, but what was your trade secret? So what was your superpower?
No, Saurabh, I think
Because it seemed like a dream career from 2030.
No, I think the journey is only linear in hindsight. Like they say, you can only connect the dots looking back.
Yeah.
You cannot connect the dots looking forward. So I don't think it was engineered. I don't think I was making these choices very deliberately. Sometimes things fall in place, but equally things might not have fallen in place. So I don't believe in engineering your career to the extent that you're describing. I don't believe it's possible. And if you do try it, I think you're going to miss out on the experiences that life throws at you. So I did not engineer my career. I did what felt right at that point in time. Only in hindsight, you can connect the dots that I started in engineering, did business for the technology industry, and moved from there to investments in the technology industry.
You're underpinning it, but it seems that you have a playbook. You're like, okay, I like engineering. If I need to engineer, I need to be best at it, which is IIT Delhi. If I want to now do MBA, I need to be in one of the best institute in INSEAD. Either you decide your career with a bigger company brand, and then be someone out there, but at least learn the processes, learn few things, even before you starting your startup or whatever. Or just jump back to your startup. Hustle, fight, do anything, everything, and you learn, and it humbles you, right? And then probably whether it's for you or not for you, and then whether you want to, because that experience will not go wasted. And then any big company or bigger organization will adopt you because you have the enterprising mindset, and that's very, very important. Every founder, every company looks for that thing.
Yeah, so I disagree with this logic of building the narrative of your career from the ground up. I don't think we live our lives like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and even if we could, I don't think that would be a good way to live your life.
Right.
I think, of course, we need to do local optimization, which is at every point in time, you choose the best, that the option that you consider is the best for you. But I think it's both very difficult and not desirable to do a global optimization, because then you would miss out on opportunities that actually come your way.
Hmm.
If you're always thinking about,
Right.
I have my entire career planned out or I have my entire life planned out, you are not going to make good decisions, because then you're stuck to the narrative that you have in your head. I think you need to leave room for serendipity.
Hmm.
And that only happens if at any given point in time you're choosing the best available option. So I would hate for my children to plan out their entire careers at the age of 18. I would love for them to try different things at any given point in time, choose the best option for them, make some mistakes, but learn from those mistakes and then choose the next best available option. And then maybe in hindsight, things will fall in place. Even if they don't, at least you did your best at every stage in your career, which in my mind is a much more preferable option than planning your career grounds up.
What I always say, whatever you plan will not happen. Discount 30-40% any which ways and be at it. Right. As a parent, how young are your kids?
10 and 12 years old.
Right. So I have a daughter, called Faith, and she's 5. Right.
What a beautiful name.
What kind of environment you are creating for your kids, wherein they are able to take these kind of decisions? Because this kind of maturity, discussion, exposure is very needed to take better decisions.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on its head. We cannot build a highly predictable life for our kids. We cannot say that I will give the best set of options at any given point to my children. What I can attempt to do is to impart the skills that allow them to make the best decisions within the set of options that they have at any given point in time. And I think that is our job as parents. It is not to optimize their lives. It is to give them the tools for them to be able to optimize their lives for themselves. And second, maybe to give them a little bit of cushion when they fall. So, of course, we all want to provide some financial security for our kids and equally emotional security for our kids. That is the cushion that I'm talking about. That's to arrest their fall so that they don't get hurt too badly when they do. But that's the extent of it. I would think of it, I like climbing rocks and climbing mountains. So I like to give that analogy, that your job as a parent is to impart the skills to your children to find the right footholds and handholds as they are climbing that cliff, and maybe to put an air cushion at the bottom. Your job is not to give them the safety rope. That is, otherwise you'd be constraining the choices that they have in their lives. I would never want to constrain the choices that my kids have.
So true, and so practical a discussion. It's not like like very idealistic. So then you got into a VC and you have committed your boss that I am happy to give rest of my life for this industry. Then what happened from there?
I think I have been now in the VC industry for 18 years. It has been the best ride ever. And as long as my investors and partners would want to continue to have me, I am hoping to spend the rest of my career in the same industry. There are a few reasons I love being a VC. So the glamour that I spoke of, the suits and the strategic questions and the fact
Vanity,
that the founders seem to respect you, all of that vanished within a few months, because at its core, every job is boring. VC is even more boring than most other jobs, because all you're doing on a day-to-day basis is just meeting companies, saying no, meeting
No,
companies,
yes.
saying no, meeting companies, saying no.
Mm.
And then once in a while, something catches your fancy. So there's a burst of activity. And in most of those cases also, you say no.
Mm.
But only a couple of times a year, you say yes.
Mm.
And then you don't know whether that was a good decision or not for another 5 years. So it is not, there are activities that give you joy from the output. Let's say I'm building a software product. I get joy when that product is built, right? That is joy from the outcome. VC is an industry where you need to derive joy from the process and not the outcome, because the outcome is not clear for a very, very long time. And even when it is clear, you cannot attribute it to yourself because it's the founder who built the company. It is the employees who built the company. It is the market that enabled that company to exist. Your contribution in it is so tiny that you can never really attribute even the little success that you have to yourself. So as a result, if you're too attached to the outcome, I don't think VC is the right industry for you. Unless you enjoy the process, I don't believe that you can actually even last in this industry.
But isn't that true for every most of the jobs or careers?
No,
or
it's not. I mean,
no?
I'll give you examples. Sales is a job where you hate the process, but you love the outcome. Because, nobody likes to constantly be in sales mode. But the outcome, when you actually are able to achieve that sales, and I have been in sales, so I can compare the two. In sales, what gives you joy is the outcome. Somebody believed in me to buy my product. That gives you joy. It is not even just the financial outcome. Yes, you make your quota, you make your bonus.
You get your dopamine.
You get your dopamine hit from somebody believing in you. Right? So it is the joy is in the outcome. The joy is not in the process. Engineering is I would say, somewhere in the middle. You get joy from both the act of building and what you have built. VC, in my mind, is actually very much a joy from
Process.
From the process, the joy from doing, as opposed to the joy from achieving. And I think it is suitable for certain personality types and not suitable for other personality types. Very alpha personalities find it very, very hard to be in VC or to continue in VC for too long. Because you have to keep your ego in check. You are not the doer. You are not the You are not the Arjun in the Gita story. You are at most the charioteer, at most. Right? You are not the warrior. And unless you are happy to be the enabler, to be the supporting actor, I don't think you can enjoy being a VC at all.
Whatever you were saying, it makes so much of sense. But if you go in the market, we see people who are alpha in VC. We see they're saying more yes. That's why people say FOMO mentality, and it's happening. There are lots of funds which are not doing it, and they're doing well over a period of time. There are lots of funds who are doing it, and they are still doing well. They're doing more yes. They are creating wherein probably they want to give it a shot to 100 startup let's say in a decade, versus someone who want to give 10 shot in a decade, and we have seen the example wherein even that probability of failing more, but one or two big outcome overcome that. What's your say on that?
There are multiple threads here that need to be unraveled. The first thread is around the feedback that you get on your own job. So we were talking about sales. In sales, the feedback is quick. It's every quarter is a moment of truth for you, right? Did you achieve your quota or did you not achieve your quota? It's a very measurable truth that you have to face every quarter.
Right.
In something like product sales, the feedback cycles are a little longer. But if you're building an internet product today, you are doing a release every week. If you're doing a release every week, you get your answer on whether those changes worked or not in a relatively short period of time. In VC, the feedback cycles are years and possibly decades, right? And the moment of truth doesn't hit you for at least 5 years. You can coast for 5 years being a VC. You can coast for a decade if you're running your own fund, but eventually you will be held accountable for the returns that you make for your investors. So I do think that it's a highly measurable job, but the measurement comes over a period of time. Alpha versus non-alpha is a different axis. That is whether you want to be the doer or you want to be the enabler. I know a lot of friends of mine who are entrepreneurs who tried their hand at VC, and the reason they did not like it is because they are too used to being the doers, being the main characters in the startup story. And the VC will never be the main character in a startup story. Those of us who attempt to be that, I think, flame out very, very quickly. I have another touchstone. In a board meeting with a startup, if a VC stands up to start writing on the whiteboard, I think the dynamic of that board is bad. Because that means the VC starts considering themselves as the doer, whereas the real doer in a startup is always the founder. So, this is the basis of my belief that alpha personalities do not necessarily make good VCs or enjoy VC as much as non-alpha personalities do. And the third aspect that you spoke about, that is purely risk management and portfolio construction, which is how many investments do you need to make to get one hit? That depends on the strategy of your fund. That depends on the stage you come in at. When you're making pre-seed investments, you might have to make 20 investments to get one hit. If you're making early stage seed and series A investments, you might have to make 7 to 10 investments to get a hit. If you're doing series B investments, you will need 1 in 3 investments to be a success, and so on. So to me, that is mathematics and good risk management. But I don't think doing more investments necessarily means a higher risk-taking VC. Because if I'm, let's say, a Series B investor, I will probably make 1 investment a year as an individual. But my success expectation will be 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, and not. Whereas if I'm a pre-seed investor, I would maybe want to make 6 investments a year because my success expectations are 1 in 20. So I don't judge the quality of a VC by the frequency of investments that they make. If I'm a Series B investor and I'm making 6 investments a year, I'm actually doing disservice to my own investor base. So that is, in my mind, pure mathematics and not reflective of how good a VC you are.
Wow, that is so deep, and I'm so happy that I've got access to learn this, because I mean, I've been making lots of mistakes, and on camera I have no comms accepted because I'm first generation founder and been learning on the go. One thing which is working for us, and we believe that we will be at it. In last 18 years, as a VC, what all you have learned, whatever you already shared, but anyone who is an aspiring student who want to start their internship at Stellaris or probably in VC, how should they go about it? Or any parent who are just thinking whether their kid should go abroad for undergrad or postgrad, or should they go abroad or not go abroad? Any suggestions or your thoughts around that?
I can pick the VC as a career question first. I actually don't think you can plan for a career in VC because one, it is not a very large industry. It's not as if the industry hires hundreds of professionals a year, forget about thousands. So even if you are adjacent to the VC industry, let's say you are a product manager at a startup, which I was, I don't think you can plan for a VC career because one, the number of new professionals entering the VC industry every year is in the tens. It is not even in the hundreds, right? Second, VC firms themselves are relatively ephemeral entities. The VC firms, if they don't succeed, they die. And so, except for the most successful VC firms around the world, the average life cycle of a VC firm would be 10 to 15 years, not more than that. So you cannot, even if let's say you do get into VC, chances are that you might not be able to serve out the rest of your career in VC. So I would not advise any young person to pin their hopes on VC as a career, because if it happens, it almost always happens by accident. You asked a separate question, which is
parents.
Advice to parents on whether to send their kids abroad to study.
Someone is looking to get their kids into, let's say, investments or investment banking or VC.
But these are very separate careers
yeah.
with a very separate with very separate skill sets required.
Okay.
I assume that for an investment banker,
Investment banking.
the core skill sets required are analytical skills and deal making skills. For a VC investor, I think curiosity and understanding of technology, a hypothesis about how markets will behave, and the ability to attract the best entrepreneurs to yourself, those would be the key skill sets. These are orthogonal skills.
Is it fine to say that, okay, someone start their career into banking and then move to investment banking, and then if they are evolving well, they have access and they are learning, then venture capitalist probably might be a natural progression or probably might not?
No, I have a fundamental disagreement with that line of thinking. I think, and this goes back to my question about should you plan your career. I think if you want to do X, you should do X. You should not say, I will do Y first, Z after that, and that will give me access to X. I think it's a very, in my mind, it's a very high risk way of planning your career, because if that move from Y to Z to X doesn't happen, you end up being unfulfilled for the rest of your life.
Let's say my end goal is to speak good English. First, I will learn words, then I will make a statement, learn to make a line and a statement, and then I eventually speaking it of good English or a good sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. But these are not analogous statements. What you're talking about is building blocks. What you're talking about is, can I build these skills one by one till I'm ready to be an expert? Fully endorse that strategy. What I do not endorse is if the set of skills that help me achieve my goal number one is different from the skills that are needed for goal number two. But I believe there is a path to go from 1 to 2. So I should build on skills that are not even relevant for my eventual goal. I think that goes back to my concern about over-engineering your career. And I would never want any young person to engineer their career to that extent.
Whatever you're doing, if you are an investment banker, be best at it. If you are a VC, be patient enough to have the bid outcome. But having self-awareness is very important. If I can go back and ask, how are you getting the wisdom? Have you done lots of mistakes, or you've been learning from other person's mistakes?
So I want to give a shout out to my ex-colleague Rupali, who gave me what I consider is the best quote about overthinking I've ever heard. We were talking about overthinking once at the lunch table, and she said that more lives and careers have been destroyed by underthinking than by overthinking,
Oh,
which I believe is so on the money.
oh.
So yes, absolutely. I think I would rather be an overthinker than an underthinker, but ideally, I would just want to be a thinker. Um, Now let's come to
Mm.
mistakes. I think once again I'll tell a story. This is my school principal used to say this.
And you did it from your schooling from Rajasthan.
I was in Jaipur,
Jaipur,
for
okay.
most of my schooling life.
Hmm.
Mr. B.G. Pitre used to say this, that the best thinkers learn from other people's mistakes. Um, Average thinkers learn from their own mistakes,
Hmm.
and the worst thinkers don't even learn from their own mistakes. So,
Wow.
being in VC gives you the opportunity, unfortunately, to learn from other people's mistakes.
Hmm.
And that means that your rate of learning is very rapid, because at any given point in time, you're learning from the mistakes of 20 founders. And as long as you have the humility to recognize even your own mistakes in those cases, you get to learn really, really fast.
Most of the people generally learn from their mistakes. How can they learn from other mistakes? Because they're practical. Everyone should be doing it, but still, most of us don't do it.
No, different people learn differently, and I don't think there is one right or wrong way to learn. Also, how we learn evolves over time. Um, when I was younger, I used to learn most from books. I have never been a reader of business books. I just don't have the patience to wade through a business book. Uh, I think I've learned the most from fiction, from philosophy, and from history, reading those, as opposed to learning from business books. Um, my one of my core beliefs in life is that absolutely no situation is new. You believe you have an original thought,
No.
and
Yeah.
then you realize that 500 years before Christ, some dude in Greece had profound thoughts on that matter, and every single thought that you've had was thought by someone else at least 2,000 years ago. So, uh, yes, books are a great way to learn, or reading is a great way to learn. You think you know something, but you don't actually know it till you have been in a situation, or
Wow.
till you are at least peripherally part of a situation.
Any question you have for me? I know I've been putting on the spot, and you've been talking, so probably you can take a break and ask me.
Yes, I do have several questions. Saurabh, I would like to ask you about your journey. Your journey has not been easy. Uh, Funding has always been hard. Uh, there was COVID in the middle. There is visa restrictions. There is a backlash against foreign students in many developed markets.
Right.
I would love to know how you have kept up your motivation level for nearly a decade now, uh, while going through these massively turbulent times.
And this is where time I got lucky, and I got introduced with my there's a cousin called Vaibhav, and who was into study abroad consultancy business, and we both realized that because he did his undergrad and postgrad in UK, and he realized there's a gap. So this idea is his, but then he was doing consulting business. So he was like, and we were both were those cousins who like partnering crimes. We want to do something, and we started Uninologist back in 2011, and by virtue we were the category creator. It just happened, right? And from 11 till 13 or 14, we were at it, totally 24/7 and all. And due to sheer hard luck or serendipity, we raised funds with Lumis, we raised funds with Lightspeed at crazy valuation. But I always say, when things happen very good, then you get to know each other, or things are at low, then you get to know each other. And somehow we just split because we are equal partners. But I was like, oh, it was my idea, you didn't quit your job, whatever. And in 2014 13, when I got married and got full time into urologist, in that 1 year we realized that I'm not enjoying it. I mean, yes, financially everything is getting better, lots of headlines, everything. But I'm like, but I'm not learning, I'm not enjoying it. So I'm like, okay, let me move out and start again. So I started this company called The University Living. Started with Australia because I didn't want to do same city and same country because I didn't want to compete. But this is how I started. And then fortunate enough to attract my co-founder, my current co-founder, who is also my roommate, and we've been together for 21 years, right? So I guess when we came together, so we know that, see, now we have taken a decision and we need to make it right. Because macro level, we believe that people going abroad or education boundaries are blurring, so that is needed, right? The macro is intact. Yes, we realize that it's a cyclical business. So every 3 to 4 years there will be turbulent times, there will be questions. Hence we focus on different destination. We started with Australia, then we went deep in UK, then Ireland, then we realized, and we were doing premium PBSA segment. And then over a period we realized that probably, whatever story we are telling to ourselves and others, if you go deep, it will not pan out. Because if I have a 95% occupancy, my margins will not increase more than 4 to 8%, right? And if I scale, either I'll raise lots of funds and burn it and go into CAC, or we take time, we build it up in a way wherein let's crack B2C first, let's then add B2B, GTM, and then add B2I. So now very happy that universities are listing us. University of Birmingham, UCL, ECA, all the good universities are listing on their platform, because inherently we know there's a gap between demand and supply. If there are 80 million students who get enrolled every year, out of which 35 million students are students who need housing, because either they are traveling from India to the world, which is around 1.3 million, or world to the world, which is 7 million, or even mobile domestic students from Cardiff to London or from Texas to New York. And if you go deeper, only 1 out of 6 students get housing from university halls. And there are lots of myth that if you're undergrad, if you're going to US, you will get accommodation from university. Yes, you do. But do you get choice of your room? Do you get to choose your roommates? Are you it's the same gender or a vegetarian? So there are lots of nuances. And then even if you see, it's not a core business of universities. They can't say no that we don't have accommodation, but in reality, they have minimum and limited accommodation, right? And that's how platform and marketplace like us come into picture. And with a model, which we are current model, we believe we are covered from Vegas to Wellington. We have premium accommodation, we have short-term accommodation, we have flexible accommodation, we have long-term accommodation. And then when adding of value-added services, how we are increasing the LTV, optimizing the CAC, and most importantly, how we ensure that students' experience is being taken care post-admission. Because lots of partners or stakeholder here are mostly into admission, because that's where the high profit pools are. Next phase we are going is how we become a global distribution system for student housing, and then we'll see what is the next step.
I'll remember the memorable phrase, we have presence from Vegas to Wellington. And that's actually a remarkable coverage. But would love to understand, Saurabh, what has been the one biggest challenge that you have faced in your entrepreneurial journey so far?
I guess the biggest challenge will be, managing personal life and professional life. As a founder, when you're very passionate and you see things where, like, there's a gold mine, and just give it all, and when you need to balance out with your personal life and your professional life, okay, that's one part which probably I need to do better, and I need to give more time to my family. And it's very unfortunate, but at the same time, probably that's the cost and trade-off to marry a founder who is very passionate. That is the biggest challenge.
On the subject of passion, I was having breakfast with a very successful founder this morning of one of the largest companies in India.
Oh.
And he said that he now treats the word passionate more as an insult
Excuse.
than a compliment.
Excuse.
And he said that passionate is a synonym for unable to control his emotions.
Yes. Agree.
So that was an insight for me.
Any question you want to ask or anything you want to tell to audience, anything, like whatever you feel like.
Actually, given that most of your audience is very young, either students or people who are thinking of becoming students um, a little later in their careers, uh, I would just leave uh, your audience with one thought, which is do not try to fix everything in your career from day one. Explore as much as you can, let life happen to you, and make the best that you can out of all the interesting opportunities that come your way. But try not to chart a course for your career very early in your life.
Let life happen to you. I have so many. There's a rapid fire segment, but I guess we don't have a time for it. But still, I would like to ask if you had to write one note to your 25-year-old self in one life, what it would say.
I would say don't be afraid. Make decisions not out of fear, but out of adventure.
Any regret you have in last 25 years of your career or your life?
Oh, how much time do we have? I have an entire list
Part
of
two.
regrets.
Part two then.
No, I mean, of course, several regrets, but I think you can't dwell too much on your regrets. You need to dwell again. Someone that I met yesterday told me that the only way to live your life is looking out of the windshield and not the rear view mirror. That's what we need to do.
Today's generation, including us, we are like, काश हम ये कर लेते, काश हम वो कर लेते, काश हमें पहले पता चल जाता. अब पता चल गया. Still at 40, you are still 50. I believe even the worst scenario, probably, you will be living till 80. You still have 30 years of 30, 40, 50 years of wisdom. Let's recourse now if you believe that you can, and anyone of us can. So on that note, in your class probably you have not done well in your 11th or 12th or your undergrad or even postgrad. It's not, life give you chances, but you need to pick it up and then make best out of it. So on that note, I will let go Ritesh go from this podcast, because and I'm definitely be after you to do a part 2 of this. Can't be more thankful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. To wrap up this podcast, I just had with Ritesh from Stellaris Venture. Whoa. I feel so blessed and fortunate to have one-on-one masterclass with someone who probably I look forward to build a career like this. I'm very fortunate, very blessed to do what I'm doing it, and I don't want to trade it for anything, because this is my journey. But still, if someone asks me to live like 2 years as your perfect life or a dream life, probably there are lots of insight I can learn from him. How to choose a career, how to choose a college, 1 year MBA or 2 year MBA, a startup, working in large companies, how to navigate your career into one of the successful venture capitalists, yet be very humble, yet be always curious, yet need to understand your personality traits. So if you want to know all things and you want to actually go on a ride where you able to end of it, you able to think and question yourself. He is a faculty in IIMS Bangalore. Even the folks who are studying IIMS Bangalore might have not got the opportunity to have one-on-one, candid, deep discussion like this. So thank you for all the support. Thank you so much.